Welcome to Plot Twist, the show where we unpack the unexpected turns that shape our careers, relationships, and ourselves. I'm your host, Tiana, leader, speaker, and corporate mom. And I'm sitting down with guests that prove that growth begins often at the twist of a story. Let's dive in. This episode is part 2 of a conversation that I started about expectations, the cost of what goes unspoken. Now, if you missed that conversation, don't leave this one. Stick around. You can watch them in any order and not get lost. Okay, so let's talk about expectations, but through a woman's lens. Because for women, expectations don't just shape our goals, they shape our identity. From the time that we're little girls, we are taught our goals. We're taught what to be, what to look like, what success is. Be pretty, be ambitious, smile. We are taught that we should have it all within a certain context. Very few of us are encouraged to be bold and challenge the status quo. Instead, we're taught that the struggle is real, it's normal, and our struggle is what makes us great. We don't talk enough, though, how hard this struggle actually is. So, what happens when those expectations go unspoken, unrealized, uncommunicated? And what happens if you complain about the burden of those expectations? Well, society looks at you like, what kind of woman are you? We also don't prepare young women for what happens when marriage, parenting, and your place in the workplace aren't equal. That's what we're going to talk about on this episode. You know, those expectations start from the moment that you're born. Did you know that females are born with all the eggs that they will ever produce in their lives already nested in their ovaries? And the expectation is the moment you take your first breath, you are designed to be supportive and carry it all, including your unborn babies. Before you even take your first step, you're decorated with bows and hairstyles and surrounded by toys like Barbie, the epitome of what is pretty. And it's no irony that I'm recording this episode in my pink Barbie sweater because before we're even taught who we are taught how we should look. And pretty is defined externally. Do you have the right shape, or are you too thick? Early identity is around being palatable, pleasing, and presentable. And that shape and form, depending on what culture you live in, all comes down to how you look as a person aesthetically. It's not also about how you present physically, but also about how your household presents, how your life is presented. You know, the ultimate goal to have that beautiful family with 2.5 kids, which, by the way, I never really understood what 0.5 of a kid is anyway. But you're supposed to have that. You're supposed to have the beautiful family, the beautiful house, the kids, the third row SUV in the front yard, and make sure you stay pretty after you have those babies. You know, the nursery rhyme that we're taught. First comes love, then comes marriage. Marriage. Yes, marriage. Almost forgot about that one. The expectation to merge, to take on a last name, someone else's identity, while still carrying everything else together. Your own legacy, your father's legacy. Having yourself in a marriage is folding your identity into a partnership, two becoming one. We call it a merge, but only one person is really expected to adapt and change. Society says she gains a partner through marriage, a provider, a co-parent. But even in parenting, everything defaults to the woman. Motherhood doesn't replace identity, it multiplies the responsibility. Emotional labor, scheduling of appointments, the mental load of everything defaults to women. If things are going well, the man helped to make it possible. If everything doesn't go well, if it falls apart, then the question is, what kind of mother is she? But what happens when the provider's expectations break? When the man doesn't do what he's supposed to do? Well, the narrative for women then shifts to resilience. Put your big girl panties on, figure it out. And if that relationship or marriage ends, if co parenting truly has to exist in two different households, then the financial independence, that strength, that provider role shifts and is now on to the woman. 85% of child support orders list fathers as the payee, yet 66% of those payees have their payments underpaid or unpaid. This reality leaves women financially, emotionally, and logistically filling that gap. The system that is our court system assumes women will absorb that impact because there is a long-standing line of outstanding child support debt and obligations. And society shames the woman at every turn when these things happen. They're left to pick up the pieces, and you hear phrases like, she's on welfare, she should have picked a better man. She's probably too independent, too bossy. That's why he left her. She's cantankerous. But the key takeaway is when support becomes inconsistent, that expectation doesn't disappear, it transfers. And the real cost isn't government benefits or the single woman epidemic, it's the impact on the rest of our society. Another thing that women face is the constant double standard. In the workplace, we have to be able to perform as well as male counterparts, but receive less compensation. In 2024, women earned 85% of what men earned. We end up with the shorter end of the stick, but more responsibilities from a society perspective. If we're supposed to take on the gaps that the higher income earning men do on less income, that puts us consistently at a disadvantage. We have to work harder for promotions and fight to get to the top. In my industry, the tech industry, women make up 25 to 30% of the workforce. When you think about C-suite positions, women hold 29%. And women of color, that representation is much lower, at about 7 to 8%. Women are constantly at a disadvantage, even in the workplace. Additional cost to this unspoken identity is internal. Women learn to stretch themselves instead of speaking out. They learn to compensate instead of confronting the issue, to absorb the requests instead of asking or demanding. And all of this pulling and stretching and compensating leads to burnout, resentment, identity erosion, and quiet grief of all the versions of yourself that never had room to exist. So, how do we change that? We change it through self-awareness. Ladies, take care of yourself. Control the things that you can control and ask yourself, is this effort worth my energy? Out of all the things on my list, what will I gain the most from? And strive to seek peace in those things that you can't control. We can also change this by holding others accountable where possible. And not just from the woman's perspective, but also as a society. Helping to speak up and helping to encourage all of us to lift each other up. Here's what I'm going to leave you with. When expectations go unspoken, women don't just feel disappointed, they feel depleted. And women become the workaround to stop gaps in the process. This isn't about blame, it's about clarity. It's about deciding what you will merge when you have different life events and what you won't merge. It's about preparing yourself and taking care of yourself. You are allowed to define what success looks like on your own terms. You are allowed to name your expectations out loud, even as a woman. And you are allowed to keep your identity intact as life unfolds. Because what goes unspoken always costs something. And it shouldn't be you. Thanks for tuning into Plot Twist. If this story made you pause, reflect, or smile, please share it with someone who's in the middle of their own plot twist. You can catch more episodes on Spotify, YouTube, and connect with me on my socials. Until next time, keep writing your own story.